aircraft. We began the on-scene investigation yesterday morning. So before I actually go into the investigative update, again, on behalf of all of the NTSB, our sincere condolences to those who lost loved ones in this crash. It's truly a tragedy, and we hate that for the families. It's never an easy thing. So our thoughts are with them, very much so. Our family assistance group has been working to assist and inform the families and survivors. They'll continue the support throughout the entire investigation. Max Green, who's leading that, is with us today. In fact, Max and I just finished about an hour and a half ago a briefing for the family members of the similar information that I'll be briefing you. We want to go into a little bit more, since this is our second day of the explanation of the NTSB's process and parties. We've been using this practice for about 30 years. We offer the party status to those government agencies, individuals, operators, government officials that may have experience or been a part of this accident. We conducted a organizational meeting, as we said yesterday, and established the parties. They are primarily the same in that it's Honeywell, the engine manufacturer, the Federal Aviation Administration, NACTA, which represents the air traffic controllers, and we also have one clarification. Due to the Mitsubishi aircraft being manufactured in Japan under the International Civil Aviation Operators, Annex 13, we offer accredited status to the Japanese Safety Board to be a party to this investigation, and through that accredited status, the manufacturer, Mitsubishi, will be considered a technical representative to the overall party structure. It's a small nuance, but we wanted to clear that up from yesterday to make sure we had the right language. We began to put together a multidisciplinary set of groups to investigate every accident of this investigation. The team is being led by Albert Nixon, who is here with me now as the investigator in charge. Albert is a 12-year veteran of the NTSB and over 30 years in aviation in general. He's out of our Phoenix office. He's also a certified airline transport pilot, one of the higher ratings. So he's been pulling together a really good team to help us work through this. I'll give you a little bit of update about what we've been doing and how we've been doing that. As of this afternoon, we've had our drone and UAS team in. They've done a full aerial view and mapping of the entire wreckage location and the surrounding area. They completed those activities about 2 hours ago. And they have a lot of good imagery that we believe will be very helpful for the post-impact inspection and evaluation. We've also conducted additional video and photo documentation of the scene and surrounding areas. And I want to call out again Columbia Sheriff's Office. They provided us with over 1,000 images post-impact of what occurred and how the plane was found. That will be very helpful for us, as some of the items in the wreckage had to be moved for the extraction of the passengers. So those are very helpful details, and they've been very accommodating from not only having a command post but security on the scene. So the community's been very welcoming and helping us in this overall investigation. We brought in a team of air traffic control specialists who have assembled. They've begun interviews. They're doing those interviews in the Albany Air Traffic Control Tower, which was controlling the aircraft at the time. We are beginning the interviews. Those will go on for the next week. We'll be interviewing every one of the controllers that were involved in the entire flight and making sure that we're getting all the details along with the management. The FAA has brought an air traffic control manager from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania in to help facilitate. The reason for Harrisburg is it's a similar sized tower that does similar operations, so we want someone who can assist us as a technical expert that was not in the tower itself. It's a normal and customary part of our practice. We pulled a number of pieces of equipment from the actual aircraft itself, and these are going to be the avionics that had been upgraded. So we've secured a large number of those. Some of them are damaged. None are in its pristine state due to the force of the impact, but we do believe that they may be helpful in whenever we get them to the laboratory to being able to determine whether they were working and the accuracy and the level to that. From that, we've also secured multiple memory cards. And those are being sent right away now to our laboratories in DC, where we have a team of experts that do recorder device and downloads. And once they get there, we'll have a better idea of what additional granular data they will provide. But we were very happy to have pulled those additional memory cards. We have begun the prepping for the engines, and they are being transferred. They will ultimately be torn down in Phoenix, Arizona. And so we anticipate a full tear down of both of the engines, and Honeywell obviously is working with us very closely on that. Aircraft recovery experts have arrived on scene. They arrived a few hours ago. They're currently working on the extraction of the aircraft itself. We anticipate this will be concluded by tomorrow evening, at which point the wreckage will all be moved to a secure facility in Massachusetts, where part of our team will relocate in order to do a more thorough examination of the aircraft itself and the structure. We've also received from the FAA ADSB data. This is Automated Detection Surveillance Broadcast. It's commonly referred to as ADSB. We have received that data from the FAA, and it gives us a much greater fidelity of information regarding altitude, speed, location, trajectory. It will be overlaid with a number of the other parts of our investigation, including the air traffic control radar information. As part of the FAA review, we will also be doing video replays of the actual ATC, or air traffic control scopes, that were being sent at the time. And we'll also be looking at the low altitude alert that was presented to the air traffic controller screen that we mentioned yesterday. Here's a few things that we know about the actual flight itself. For this aircraft, it was the second flight of that day. It had taken off at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time from Norwood Memorial and arrived at White Plains at 10:19 a.m. It then departed White Plains at 11:34 en route to Columbia Airport before it was lost on air traffic controller screens and subsequently found in a post-impact crash. We're at the location that we found it. Automated weather at Columbia Airport was recorded 4 minutes prior to the actual accident. And I'm going to make sure I clarify this. It was at the airport. The crash scene is approximately 10 miles from the airport. So there can be a slight variance between the airport and what was experienced at the crash scene, but it would be fairly consistent. And we're actually going back out and looking at other reporting stations en route to make sure we're providing the best investigative picture of all the information. Automated weather at the Columbia Airport 4 minutes before the crash indicated a minimum ceiling of 400 feet AGL. Wind from 10 degrees at 8 knots, a temperature of 37 degrees with a dew point of 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Relative humidity was 93%. Now, what we can say is weather was, at that time, what we consider to be deteriorating. And I mentioned the ceiling at the airport being 400 AGL. That's above ground level. At 400 feet AGL for that approach at that airport, it would be the minimum for a landing under an IFR, or instrument flight approach. So at 400 feet, the altitude would be the absolute minimum, 400 feet ceiling would be the minimum for that type of landing on that approach at that time. We have reviewed some of the records regarding the pilot of this aircraft. And if you look at the Mitsubishi series, you may notice that this type of plane requires additional training beyond just a normal FAA private pilot's license. We're reviewing all details regarding that pilot and the licensing, all the inspections, all the check rides. But for this specific aircraft, additional training was required to operate it. The training was completed and the pilot was proficient. It was completed on October 8th of 2024. Our teams have been working around the clock to try to gather this information and put together the facts that will help us determine what caused this accident, and of course help prevent such tragedies from happening again. Now I'm going to ask the IAC to come forward and tell you a little bit about some of the working groups that he started to establish that will ultimately lead to the investigative report.
As mentioned, for the investigative update, we formed several teams. The first is a weather team, and obviously, as you mentioned with the weather, they're gathering all the pertinent weather data from the National Weather Service for the accident. Previously mentioned, we also have an ATC team here, plan to be here all week. I'm not gonna, I think you talked a little bit about it already, but their role is the reconstruction and review of the air traffic control services provided to the accident aircraft, obviously. And this includes flight track, surveillance, radar, ADSB, etc. And any, of course, any communications with ATC. Another group we have formed is structures, and basically those are the ones that are currently on scene finishing up. They're looking at the airframe, the engines, and also they'll be looking at impact angles, and they're trying to determine the angle the airplane impacted and also the attitude. So that's being worked as we speak. And finally, power plants, the engines. We mentioned where they're going ultimately, but obviously they'll be looking at the engines and the propellers and all the accessories associated with the engine.
Thank you, Albert. So these, as I said, they've been working around the clock. As to our schedule going forward on the investigation, we're working closely with not only the parties to gather that principal evidence and key measurements to expedite on our on-scene activities. Our goal while we are here is to collect all perishable evidence that can be stored for later examination and evaluation. Once that is concluded, the team will wrap up in the area. We anticipate being in the area, we believe, another 5 days, depending upon weather and what we find. However, if we need to stay longer, we will. If we need to bring people back at another point, we will. But we feel comfortable with where we're at currently in obtaining that perishable evidence. We've made good progress today and yesterday, and it's still very early. Our objective is not just to find out what happened, but why it happened, so we can make recommendations so this does not happen again. We're not going to be speculating about what may have caused the accident. We hope to have the preliminary report out in 30 days and the final report in 12 to 24 months. However, I do want to stress, if we find a pressing need, we have no problem issuing an urgent safety recommendation before then. The NTSB has had a history. In fact, we did a similar urgent safety recommendation. I was the board member for the DCA crash. Once we found information that we thought needed to be corrected immediately, we will make that urgent safety recommendation to either a manufacturer or to an organization or a regulatory authority. So we hope to have the investigative report in 12 to 24 days. We will be sending out, as I said, the preliminary report. It'll have the facts of the accident itself, more information that we've pulled together regarding additional reports. This will also be probably our last media briefing on site, because at this point we know where we're kind of going with the investigation and feel comfortable with where we're at. I'm going to stress again, we ask anyone that has any information regarding this, and I mentioned yesterday door cams or ring doorbells, things like that. We don't believe, because of the post-accident or the accident video, we don't believe that there would be any reason. But even if someone finds a little piece of something in their yard that may not look right, please contact us. And the email address is witness@ntsb.gov. That email address is witness@ntsb.gov. If you think that you have any evidence or any information that could assist in this investigation. Those tips and clues are usually very helpful for us. Since this will be our last briefing, I also wanted to call out the first responders who were there, and they did a really amazing job considering not only the notification but the conditions. There's a lot of jet fuel that is in that area. I know a lot of us had to decontaminate 3 times yesterday in a wash bay, and so they were really working very hard, and we're very appreciative of their efforts. Those are really, truly unsung heroes of your community. Those first responders who were involved in the initial response were the Columbia County Sheriff's Office, the New York State Police, the Community Rescue Squad, the Craryville Fire Department, the Hillsdale Fire Department, the Columbia County Fire Coordinator's Office, the Columbia County Coroner's Office, the New York State DEC Spill Response, Greenport Rescue, And I would also like to mention the school systems in Columbia where they've allowed us to use as one of their facilities in their wash bays as we've been doing some of our meetings, and also LifeNet. The sheriff's office and others were hopeful enough that they actually had air transport on call if necessary for this incident. It ultimately was not needed, but we were appreciative of everything they did. So with that, we're going to try to take some questions and hopefully get some answers for any information you may need. I ask that you just tell us who you are and from what outlet you come from. Yes, sir.
Anthony Filikowski with WCBS-TV. We asked last time about the airworthiness ticket that was first in 1985 and then it was updated in 1995. For more information, it's usually only done if there's something significant that happens, like a crash or anything like that. Can you give us any insight into that airworthiness ticket today?
So the question was about airworthiness ticket, and we did take that back, and we've had a discussion with the Mitsubishi representative. Of our initial review, we feel comfortable that that plane should be flying. We see no issue with that, especially with its inspections. We do know that occasionally when an airworthiness ticket is opened up at an original delivery, it sometimes creates one airworthiness certificate, and sometimes you can have either a major upgrade or a change in the aircraft. It can be several other reasons. So one of the other things that we're actually doing is going back through every maintenance record for the entire life of that aircraft. We're pulling together every inspection. We will most likely talk to anyone who did work on that plane recently. We will also talk to anyone who may have done any check rides or anything in regard to follow-up maintenance on it. But we are feeling good about the specificity of the information we're receiving. Because of the sale that occurred last year, there was a lot of updated information, and there were several reviews from different regulatory authorities. So I appreciate it. Other questions? Yes, sir?
You mentioned that the pilot would need additional certification in order to fly a plane like this. If you can go into a little bit more details about what type of certification that's needed, or what type of training or education that's needed.
So the question is about basically additional training regarding this type of aircraft. The Mitsubishi, this is a twin propeller turboprop. It is what operates what I would say at a very high speed, close to jet speed. So it's a very agile, high performance type of plane, even though it's registered as a turboprop. Over the course of investigations, the NTSB has found and made recommendations, specifically making sure that an operator has an additional level of expertise beyond just a standard private pilot's license and possibly a certification under, say, a piston single engine. And so through those recommendations and working with industry and regulators, that is now a requirement for that additional training. I believe it's around 8 to 10 hours specifically to that aircraft, but we do know that we verified that this owner and operator, and we have confirmed the owner is the same person as the operator, that this owner and operator went through that training and was fully certified to be on that aircraft and flying it.
Follow?
Yes, sir.
8 to 10 hours of flying time?
So the question was 8 to 10 hours of flying time. I don't know the specifics of that. I know it's specific to that airplane and that air structure. I don't have that training curriculum at that time. I do know that it was, as I said, a suggestion from the NTSB and others, and that we closed that recommendation acceptable. So we felt comfortable with the action that was taken by the manufacturer and the regulator to ensure that the training would be adequate for that type of aircraft. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, that's Lynn with National Berkeley. Question about the year of manufacture, 1985, and then the year that it was certified to be safe to fly was 1995. Anthony touched on this. Is it normal for there to be a 10-year gap between that time, and then also that you said it should have been flying fine and there could have been major upgrades or changes? Is it normal for there to be a 10-year gap for all of that?
So the question exists about some records that show 1985 versus 1995. I would say we're digging into that further based on the question, but I would say this, with airworthiness certificates, there can be sometimes events that change it after a 10-year period that may say it needs a different or a new airworthiness certificate. You could have in this model, you could have a major modification change, such as the propellers. The propellers are a very specific and unique thing that could change the airframe itself. We will, as part of our investigative process, we will obviously be looking at that, every maintenance record. So right now, we don't see information that would lead us to the fact it was not airworthy at that moment, but the history of the aircraft, along with the history of the pilot, what they were doing 72 hours before, what the air traffic controllers were doing, all of that will be a part of that investigative report that will ultimately come out, and it'll be a part, while it's not in the investigative report, it will be a part of the docket that will be released publicly. One of the main things we want to do is be as transparent as possible with all of our investigative material. It's important that the public have trust in the investigative process and that we've not only ruled in, but ruled out everything that could have been a contributing factor to this accident. Yes, sir.
John Kaplan, CBS 6 News. Do you have any information on how often this plane was flown?
The question was the amount of usage. We are pulling those records, and I would say in the amount that this plane was flown could be a relative term. Some people may use a plane every day. Some people may use it once a week. Some people once a month. The reason why we wanted to indicate it was the second flight of the day, it may be helpful to our investigators in regard to not only condition, but startup from the previous flight that may have occurred. And so we have an idea if there was a storage issue, possibly there was movement damage, or that something is fluid leak. Those things factor into, but that's one of the reasons why we wanted to offer the second flight of the day and the timing of that. Obviously, no reported problems during the first flight that we know of at this time, but we will be talking to that, and that's also, we've talked to the FBO operator, the fixed base operator, where the plane landed and took out from at White Plains. That is how we initially identified the 6 people that were on board from video of them actually getting on the plane prior to the crash. Additional questions? Yes, ma'am.
Have you guys obtained any recent videos as of yet, or any sort of videos or tips from the public about this crash?
The question was about additional videos or tips, and I don't believe so. I was looking to the IAC to confirm. I know we have had the one video we had from a general location. The way that works is whenever people reach out to our witness at NTSB.gov, there's a certain clearance process to make sure that it's valid information and worthy of ours. And I got to admit, 24 hours a day. It was a late night last night. It was an early morning. So those typically filter to us from our response operations center, and there may be a little bit of a small lag time. I know the investigator in charge mentioned he's got about 12 phone calls to return just from this morning. So I don't know if we have anything yet, but we're very appreciative. It's very often that those tips are very helpful for us. They help paint a better picture. So that's the reason why we try to reach out to as many people as we can. I will again stress, we don't believe that there's anything based on the one video we have that there was any type of mid-air breakup. But if someone does find a piece of debris, most aircraft parts typically have some form of serial number on them. If you were to find anything in that general area within a 5 or 10 mile radius as you're going through, I'll go back to the Alaska 1282 investigation we did with the door plug. It was found in someone's yard later that day. Those things, you never can tell when they will pop up. So we want to try to get that witness at ntsb.gov email address in case someone would find something in the future. Anything else?
Roger Hennigan, Gilson Times Union. The one camera, the images you have from that, would you be able to say where it was being shot from, and does it have like a wide angle, or does it just capture like part or the end of the impact?
So the question is about the video again, and this was, it's an important part because it's helping us. Again, it was in a close vicinity of the crash. The exact frames per second, I would say, cause a little bit of a skipping. You can see the initial plane come into the frame, and then there's a good clear image of what I would call the profile, the full profile. If you can imagine seeing a picture of a plane on the side through a certain angle, you're only seeing that side. You're not able to see everything across it. So if you can imagine a picture coming across at a full profile, that lets us know, and that's the reason why we have a better degree of confidence that there was not some type of specific breakup. And so that picture actually helped us. And then from there, it jumps down into the impact. And the impact, of course, had a large amount of, I would say, debris that came up from it. So those are the specific frames that we're looking at. And that was, again, very helpful The sheriff's office was able to give us, before we took off from DC Saturday night, they actually did a video camera with the video camera. We actually flew in one of our people from our CIO's office, an IT specialist, specifically to help us with this, but more importantly, they were at the location whenever we were able to obtain the actual master copy. And so that's the reason we brought in a CIO person. We want to make sure we're investigating every possible aspect of this incident. We appreciate your time. Again, our thoughts and condolences definitely for these families that are affected. We'll look forward to bringing out the preliminary report to you in 30 days. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been breaking news.